Hi again, everybody. This is Alicia, the dame of the brush, I suppose, and I'm back with hopefully a good how-to video on Daemonettes. As you can see, I've got a Daemonette here. I've spray primered it black, and what I'm going to do right now is do the base color in Rakarth Flesh. And I'm going to try and show you how I do this. Now, it doesn't need to be perfect, so I mean, you can get it where you need it to be and be messy about it, because we're going to be covering stuff up. In fact, I think I'm using the wrong brush right now, because it doesn't matter with a base color if you're sloppy with it, because you're not going to paint the whole thing. As I drop my brush. So I'm just going to get a little bit bigger brush. You're not going to paint the whole thing in one go. So you don't need to be worried about getting too messy with it. Because you're going to go over, your details with other stuff. But the thing that you want to be with the base color is consistent. Now right now I'm just kind of slopping it on, and you can see, let me see if I can adjust my light a little bit here. So, Alright. As you can see, you can kind of see my base color primer through the Rakarth right now, but when I'm finished with it, what I want to have happen is I want it to be a nice, consistent, even color, and I don't want a lot of paint just kind of glopped on in places, because if you just glop it, you're going to lose out on a lot of your details. So it's a balancing act of not putting too much on the brush to where you're glopping and losing detail, but getting enough on the model so where, as I'm not painting high enough, I'm sorry. And if you accidentally put too much on the area, just work it. Alright, let me tell you about, always use the right kind of glue to glue your model to the base, because you don't want that to happen, like what just happened. So, sticky tack, there you go. It's always important to use the right glue for the right model. Personally, I like the GW plastic glue for plastic models, because it ends up melting the plastic a little bit together, so it forms a much stronger bond, and stuff like that doesn't happen too often. Now, that being said, I mean, you can use other glues. If you find a glue that you like and it holds together well, by all means use it. But if nothing else, the GW glue is formulated to work with their models, so you know it's going to work. The hazards of using other types of glue is, of course, it could work too well, or it could dry weird, and then you've lost detail, or you have this giant glob of glue screwing up the lines on your model. So always, always, always important to use the right amount of glue. well, and the right formulated glue. But, so if you end up glopping too much on one area of the model, just take the brush and just kind of move the paint further down the model. Just kind of move it down to kind of thin it out and get your coverage. Because if you put the base color on too thin, you can always go back over it to get it the right consistency. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pause it and get this finished. Alright. So now that I've got a nice even base coat of the Rakarth flesh going on all the skin, the claws and the feet, all that good stuff, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a dry brush of Pallid witch flesh over the top of the Rakarth. I'm going to put this down so I can open the bottle, because you need two hands. And I got a cruddy brush right here for my cruddy brush task of dry brushing. What I'm going to do is, now I got a little bit on the brush here, I'm going to wipe some of it off on my little paper towel here that I got. So I don't completely cover the thing in Pallid. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to wish that I waited longer, because I tried to glue this thing back onto its base and it doesn't want to stay on there. So since it doesn't want to stay on, forget it. This is the problem with these witch elves. They don't have enough points of contact to stay on the base is very good. So I'll just have to reglue it later after I'm done for the night. As it's like midnight here and I'm doing this for you guys. Now this this paint scheme that I'm doing here, I came up with this out of my own little brain. This is not GW standard, so if you're looking for that kind of thing, I need more Pallid. You probably need to watch somebody else's video. But I'm not really worried about GW standard as far as demons go, because honestly I think with the Demons of Chaos, in fact pretty much any chaos army, you don't have to stick to the stated paint schemes, because they're all just random wacky things from these weird kind of little hell pit things. And they can be any color they want to be, because it's chaos, baby. It ain't law. Sorry. I guess I'm getting too far down. I'm still not used to painting where a camera can see me. But I think I'm getting better, because my big old hand's not getting in the way, as far as I can tell. Alright. So if you get it on a little thick in some places and some places not, don't sweat it overly much. Dang it. This points of contact are killing me. I'm trying, Vince. I'm trying. That's freaking sticky tack. Alright, I think that's pretty good. So I got the palette on there. You can kind of see where I got it on there. It's just like a light dry brush. And now that I got that finished, I'm going to cut the feed and let it dry for a minute, because after that we're going to do a Reikland flesh wash on it, so it needs to be a little bit more dry than what it is right this second. Alright, now that this thing has had a little bit to dry, I'm going to pull out Reikland Fleshshade and a good sized brush, and I'm going to go over all of the stuff that we have painted with it. Always make sure to kind of shake up your shades, because they do settle. I'm going to just drive my camera crazy here if I shake it on camera. I'm going to have to replace mine soon because I'm almost out. Alright. Now with this, we don't want too much in one area, because it's just going to make that one area dark, and we want to give good shadows all throughout. And the Reikland Fleshshade, it makes this relatively white paint job look more kind of flesh colored. Now the Fleshshade is even easier, like if you accidentally glop on too much in a certain area, to just kind of rub around and get even again. Because you just go back to where it's puddled. You can dip your brush into where it's puddled, and the brush will soak up all that extra. So if you make a mistake, don't freak out. Just kind of wipe your brush off because if you make a mistake at the end and you have nowhere else to redistribute this ink, just kind of wipe your brush off and stick it where it needs to go, and it'll soak up what you need to do, what you need to soak up. Make sure that you get it everywhere that we've covered with the Pallid and the Rakarth. Don't leave any of it white, because if you do, it's going to show. You're going to have a splotch, and it's not going to look good. So I mean, even okay, you can't really see it, but see, right there. See where my brush tip was going? Right up in there. You know, up in the armpits and back of the legs and between the toes and the crab claws here, all of it. Now the trick with the redistribution is you have to do it quickly, because if the ink is already starting to dry and you move your brush to soak up a puddle, it's going to leave a weird splotch, and we don't want that. Alright, so I've got this covered. I'm going to cut the feed and I'm going to let it dry. And this typically takes around 5-10 minutes. But just If you're not sure, don't mess with it. But you can kind of look and see, you know, is it still shiny in places? If it's shiny, it's wet. Of course, if you didn't shake your bottle up good enough, it could be shiny because you didn't shake your bottle up good enough. So just wait, you know, you can wait, you know, a couple hours. Don't sweat it. And typically when you're doing these guys, you're going to be doing them in batches. So by the time you've finished putting this on all of them, the first one might be dry. But that depends on how fast you work. Alright. Now my Reikland flesh is dried. What I'm going to do now is take some of this Terminatus stone. This is one of the dry brush paints from GW. And I've kind of started liking these dry brush paints. As you can see, it's really dry inside. There's not a whole lot of liquid, hence the term dry. I'm just going to take one of my cruddy brushes here and get some on the brush. As you can see, a lot of it comes off. It comes out at once. But I don't want to use that much, and so I'm just going to wipe a lot of it off. And I'm just going to use this dry paint as a sort of highlight to kind of knock it back to a paler flesh tone. Because the Reikland flesh, it made the Daemonette look very tan. And I don't want tanning bed Daemonettes. I want a very pale, demonic, hermaphrodite, transvestite thing. I don't know. Circus freak, maybe? I don't know, is that term kosher? Not sure. I don't know, should I be using kosher? I'm not of the Hebrew persuasion, so just one of those things that is just become a saying, I guess. I really hope you people like this video, because I'm giving up a night of watching MASH on my iPad right now to kind of show you guys what I'm doing. Because they just got MASH up on Netflix. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, you're too young, you've never seen it, go look it up. It is hilarious. It is the best show that was ever on television. Okay, maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it's a really good show. Even just, I've seen every episode at least twice, which is saying something, because it was on, before The Simpsons beat out its mark, it was the longest running TV show ever. And a lot of those episodes, they can just make me laugh out loud, which is hard to do, because usually I can find something funny and not completely just bust out laughing at it. But with MASH, it's so hard for me not to just bust out laughing, because it's so well written and executed. It's a marvelous show. contact. GW, stop with the one point of contact on these models. It makes it so difficult to make them. Alright, and for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, points of contact, it means that little, how much of the base of the, how much of the model is actually touching the base. And on this, it is a little bit of 1 foot. Oh, great job, GW. It looks like she's kind of running. No, it doesn't. It looks like she's like in a weird contrapposto pose. It doesn't look like she's going to come and eat me. And even though they're hermaphrodite, I still refer to it as a she, just because it's wearing a Merry Widow. I mean, look at this. And yes, I love Rocky Horror, and I love Tim Curry in The Merry Widow, but, you know, he's the exception. On average, I don't see a whole lot of guys wearing those. Alright. Okay. So now I've got that all done. The next step is going to be a little bit more involved. So I'm going to cut the feet so I can get everything together. Alright, for this next part, what we're going to do is we're going to use this Lahmian Medium. It's one of the new technical paints. And this Caledor Sky base paint. Now, I picked this little trick up from the How to Paint What Else book that GW came out with. And what this Lahmian Media kind of does is it thins your paint without actually thinning your paint. Alright, now that sounds a little weird, I know. But it's the only way I know how to describe it. It's kind of like you thin your paint out with water, but it stays as thick as paint usually does. Or you can kind of think about it as it helps you make a paint into a wash. Now, I've gotten some of this in this little mixing cup that I've got. And I'm going to clean my brush off and put just a little bit of the Caledor Sky. Now, I'm not putting a whole lot in. As you can see, it's pretty much just what's on my brush right there. Now, this is a little hard because I've been mixing this in this cup for the entire army. So, well, not the entire army, but the entire, 30 mana Daemonettes. So I kind of mix it together, and it ends up being, I do around 2/3 Lahmian Medium, 1/3 Caledor Sky. Or just, thereabouts. You can kind of mess around with the consistency. But as you can see, kind of, there we go. My brush is only kind of tinted that Caledor Sky color now. It's not like I dipped it in actual regular paint. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on the feet. See how you can kind of see through it? But it's that nice kind of blue tint. I find that it's a nice way of doing a fade, which is kind of the effect that I'm going for with this. Sorry, my finger got in the way again. Darn it. Okay. Now what I've done here is I've only gone up the leg to where the horn is here on the knee, and since I went up about that far, I went up about that far on this leg too, because there's like some nice scaling right here and those two horn claws on the side. And what my goal with this is to kind of show where this thing was mutated by chaos, you know? Alright, so once that's done, you kind of let that dry a little bit. Alright, now for the next part, we're going to take a Lahmian Medium again, and this time we're going to mix it with some of this Mephiston red. And it's going to be that same kind of two-thirds Lahmian Medium, like 1/3 Mephiston. And of course you can mess with the mixture. This is just the kind of mixture that I find that works best. Because GW told me to use, you know, half and half, and that just came out really kind of thick to me. So just a little red on the brush, mix it. Get that nice red tint there. That's not enough red. That's the beauty part. If you mess up with this mixture and you didn't put enough of the paint in there, you can always add just a little bit more until you get it right. Okay. There we go, much better. Now this mixture behaves very similarly to a wash. If you feel like you glopped on too much, the brush will soak it back up and you can move it around. It will also dry a lot flatter than a wash, like a wash does too. So if you feel like you glopped on a lot in one place, it'll at least flatten itself out a little bit. Now we have some nice red little crab claws here. And again, we're just going to do it kind of like a fade. With this one, I mean, I went past the cuff just so you can tell that the arm... There we go. Tell that the arm does have a fade in there. This one I didn't go up to the cuff, I just kind of stopped after the little spikes there. Alright. Alright, the last of these little mixtures we're going to do is the Lahmian Medium again with a bit of Genestealer purple. And yes, you can use layers to do this. I just picked 2 base colors because I like the color. But this last one is a layer color. So, and what we're going to do with this one, okay, is actually get the figure on the camera so you can see what I'm doing. We're going to do the tail. This nice little kind of very like lilac color. Like, be sure to get the underneath too. There. Nice little purple tail. Alright, now that all of our washes have dried, the next step is we're going to use some of this Kindleflame dry paint, and we're going to put it, we're just going to dry brush a little on the crab claws here. Sorry. Not a whole lot, basically just enough to bring out the highlights that are left. They're just a little bit more. Kind of bring out there we go. And then we're going to take the same paint and kind of punch up the highlights on the tail back here. Now, there's some claws, horns, whatever on this one here, but as you can see, I'm not really caring if I'm getting the highlight on them too, because I'm going to paint back over them with a different color to kind of punch them out. Alright, so we're done with our Kindleflame. The next paint that we're going to use is this Fenrisian gray. And we're going to do a dry brush with it as well. And we're going to punch up the highlights on the legs here. Basically just hit the popped out muscles, kind of folds in the toes. Definitely the scales. Just kind of hit them a little bit. Alright, now that's done. I'm going to let that dry for a little bit. Alright, now that I've let that dry just a little bit, the next step is to apply some washes. So first off, we're going to do some Drakenhof Nightshade. And you might have guessed it's going to go on the feet. be sure to shake it up well beforehand. And instead of going all the way up, we're going to leave just a little bit of this unwashed up at the top. And what that's going to do is that's going to help you transition. And I'm using a detail brush here because I don't want to get this wash anywhere that I don't want it just yet. I want a lot of control for these next couple of washes. And I went up over this little horn here, but not on the back of the leg. See if I can get my camera to focus. There it goes. Do do do. Sorry, couldn't see that for a little bit, but there you go. So now I got the legs washed. And there's, like I said, oh, I missed some spots here. Do not miss spots, because if you don't get it with the washes, you're going to have weird pink splotches here and there where you don't want them. Alright, there we go. Now that wash is done, the next wash, what we're going to do is going to be on the crab claws, and we're going to do some Carroburg Crimson with that. And again, you got to shake it up real good, because you don't want them to be shiny crab claws. Make sure you get them all in there good. And just like on the legs, we're going to leave just a little bit unwashed. There where the regular skin meets the crab claw. Because we're not looking for they just got glued on. We're looking for more, this is where the mutations start happening kind of concept. And spin your model, make sure you get it all in there good. There we go. And we got one more wash to do. And that last wash for right now is going to be a Druchii Violet. And as you may have guessed, it's going on the tail. Be sure to get up underneath the tail on the back side too, because you don't want just a random pink or black line back there. Just make sure you hit it. Alright. Now that we got our 3 washes on, we're just going to let those dry before we do anything else. Alright. Now that we've had some time to let all those washes dry, what we're going to do is we're going to take some of this Wild Rider Red, drop it on the floor, and we're going to do a dry brush, just very lightly over the highlights. And basically we're just going to color the highlights to be just a little bit of a brighter red instead of the kind of light, very bright, very light, dull highlight that they are now. And it just gives a nice warm color to those claws. Sorry, it's kind of hard to paint so you guys can see. Alright, there we go. I'm gonna see if I can't get this a little bit closer to the light so you guys can... There we go. Nice, bright, happy, warm claws. Alright. Now the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take our Fenrisian gray again, and this is a very just nice, it's not really a gray, it's more like a very light blue gray is what this is. I'm just trying to wash my brush off here. And as you can see, the wash made the legs very, very dark. Well, not very, very dark, but screw you, backdrop. Alright, so we're just going to take that Fenrisian and we're going to highlight up those muscles again. And that's just so the shadows are shadows and the highlights are highlights. I don't know if you can hear it, but my husband is doing one of his battle reports right now. It's kind of distracting. It's always weird when he does a female voice. Like, it doesn't get high-pitched or anything, it just kind of sounds a little weird, a little off, you know? I can always tell when he's doing female voices, because he always does kind of the same voice for all of his female villains. And it's weird. Okay, so there we go. So, all nice and highlighted up. Pretty feet. Alright, now we're going to get some highlight back up on the tail. Tail's gotten dark in areas, and what we're going to do is we're not going to mess overly much with those areas. Just do tiny little brush with the Kindleflame. Try again. Not as much as what we did the first time, just a hair. Just kind of enough to kind of bring it. Right there. Alright. The next step we're going to do is going to go back in with the Rakarth flesh. And we're going to pull out all of, like, the weird toenails and spikes and horns and, like, whatever you want to call them. We're just going to pull them all out with the Rakarth. That way they'll be nice and readable as something, you know, not foot or claw, but almost, you know, horn-like. And these models, they vary on how many horns and whatever, claws, spikes, what you want to call them. There are in every mini, so if you miss one or two, it's easy enough to go back in and pick them all back up, but just take your time and get them in one go. Go. And the little claws, like, even little spiky bits inside the claw here. Like, you can tell, like, if there's a dimple, that is not part of the claw. If there is no dimple, then that is part of the claw. I know that sounds a little weird, but that's the easiest way that I have to describe it. Okay, this is really hard, so I'm just going to pause it and do it. Alright, got all that done. You can kind of tell, see, where I've got all those all picked out, because all of those had dimples. So that means that they are the type of claw that I'm going for. Alright, so the next thing is we're just going to leave the claws as is for right this second. We'll go back and finish them later. I'll pull out my Slaanesh gray, which is kind of like a purpley gray. Kind of like how the Fenrisian is a blue gray, this is like a purple gray. I'm going to open it up, and this is going to be the base for my hair color. As you can see, I got a ponytail here, and there's some little carved lines like right here that indicate that there's hair on her head as well. It's not just a single top knot and shaved all around. So I'm going to put a little bit right there where the lines are. And there's some lines on the back of the head too. So there we go. Got a little bit of hair on her head. Not much, but you know. Better than being one of the bald ones, I suppose. I guess because, you know, half of they're all hermaphrodites, so I mean, I suppose it's just numbers that, you know, some of them would have male pattern baldness, right? Alright, now we got that all covered. Gonna let that dry for a minute. While we're doing that, I'm gonna go ahead and do a little bit of the eye. And just gonna keep things going. And the way that I'm gonna do that is I'm gonna pull out my Pallid Witch Flesh. I don't use a whole lot of the Scar Whites anymore because it's just so super bright, and I don't know that we really need it to be that super bright. Shake it up real good. Get just a little tiny bit on the brush. And just get a little bit of dot in there. See? Not a whole lot, just a little dots. There we go. And I'm not going to do pupils on this because it's a freaking demon. Shouldn't have pupils. No pupils for you. Go to end of line. Alright. So I think I'm going to let all that dry for right now because the next steps I need to do dry brushing and whatnot. Alright, well you guys have been watching me for about an hour at this point, so kudos to you for sticking with me. Now the next part that we're going to do is I'm going to take some of this Pallid Witch Flesh again, and I'm going to use it as a highlight on the hair. And really all I want to do is kind of just use it to pick out the little strands. On it kind of like that. Do it on the other side too. And what this is going to do is when I wash it, it's going to keep those kind of strands picked out a little better. When it's washed, those strands are going to be kind of brighter than the rest of the hair. And it'll look nice. See? There you go. All nice and picked out. So I'm going to let that dry. And while I'm letting that dry, I'm going to pull out my Liquid Talent Agrax Earthshade. And I'm going to shake it up. And I'm going to use it, get that hair out of the way, on the claws and toenails that we did in the Reikland. And this is going to make it look different from the skin. It's also based in whatever, Rakarth. There we go. If I said that the skin was based in Reikland, I am so sorry. It was washed in Reikland. It's based in Rakarth. The names, they're similar enough to me that I can't really keep them straight in my head half the time. I know what I'm talking about, but it's gonna be a little crazy. Now, when you're washing the claws, you can't help but get just a little bit of wash touching that red. Don't sweat it overly much, but don't don't just glop it. You know, so I mean, you can having just a little bit of shade in those dimples is great. But too much and then you got brown claws and that's just not good. Sorry. This thing throws me because the camera's like all the way to one side and I keep wanting it to be in the middle. Hence why half the time you can't see what I'm doing with my model. So there. All the claws and horns and whatevers are washed in the liquid talent. And we're going to let that dry. And while we're letting that dry, I'm going to go ahead and finish up the eyeballs with something a little different. I'm going to grab me my bottle of Bloodletter Glaze. Shake it up real good. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a little bit and I'm going to dot the eyes with it. Might even cross some T's. Haven't decided yet. Now I soaked up some of it back up because I don't want it just to be two blobs of red right there on the eyes. I want just enough of the Bloodletter to make them red, kind of a reddish glowy tint. Not enough to just be two red dots. Now that glaze is going to settle into like the crevices and darken around the edges, which is going to be nice. It'll kind of give a cheap kind of glow effect. Alright. So the eyes are done. So next up, I'm going to get annoyed at my backdrop. I'm going to pull out my Naggaroth Night base. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to work that into the fabric of the Merry Widow here that she is wearing. Shake that up because you want it to be good and shaken up. You don't want it all thin or all thick and gloopy, whatevers. Alright. Now the way that this is going to end up being is what I'm going to call fabric is going to be a nice purple tone. And it's going to have metallic pieces kind of throughout the outfit. So when you start any of the demon outfits, you kind of want to go through and decide, you know, what do I want to be metal and what do I want to be fabric. I have to tip it because I can't see otherwise, sorry. Because you want to try and get it all the way around so you haven't missed anything. Alright. So that's all the purple I'm going to have on that Merry Widow. Come on, thing. Focus. There we go. And now for a little bit of purple around the chainmail. Kind of loincloth piece we got going here. Since they only have one boob, makes me kind of wonder what's that loincloth hiding, you know? Because they don't have a loincloth and a cod piece, they just have a loincloth. I know it's kind of a moot point because, you know, they're probably about as anatomically correct as a Ken doll, but it's one of those funky things that I have no idea if they ever answer in the book or not. Like, you know, what they got packing down there. And it's okay for me to be discussing this kind of stuff because it is after midnight on day 2 of me doing this. Now, of course, if I wasn't doing the video, it would not take me, sorry, gotta do that, near so long. Alright. So now we got all our nice Naggaroth. Let me see if I can get a little bit brighter here. There we go. Got all that nice Naggaroth on there. And I'm going to wait and let that dry. Alright, now that we've got the Naggaroth dry, we're going to take out some Genestealer purple and just kind of dry brush a little bit of it in here into that little corset area. And this is just kind of used to brighten it up just a little bit, because that Naggaroth is really kind of dark to begin with. And after we wash it, we want to be able to see that it's purple still. Alright, so that's done. Now, next thing we're going to do is, while we still have the Genestealer out, I'm going to switch brushes to a detail brush. And give this Daemonette some eyebrows. Now, if you're careful, with it, it'll end up looking pretty good. Now, the reason why I'm doing it Genestealer is because I'm going to end up washing this top knot here. And when it comes out, it's going to look very, very close to the Genestealer. So it'll look like she's not weird. Alright. Now, next step is going to pull out some of this Slaanesh gray again. I'm going to wash the detail brush. And I'm going to pull out some kind of details in this kind of corset area that I want to pull out and make sure that they pop out after it's washed. For this one, it's just the ribbing or boning or whatever you want to call those then I'm going to pull out. Maybe just a little edge there on the inside of the loincloth there. There you go. That's done. And so now the last little detail on the corsets that we're going to do before we wash it is the gold bits. And for that, I'm going to use Screaming Bell. It's a very kind of reddy, coppery, kind of metallic color. You really got to shake the mess out of this, because the metallic colors, they tend to separate real bad, and they make it hard to work with sometimes. But basically all those parts of the corset that I left undone are now going to be this kind of very nice kind of coppery red color. Now, of course, I'm not going to be doing the chainmail. Blast it! Look at that. Because these dang bottles won't stay open very good. Okay. Now the chainmail I'm going to do it is a completely different color. I'm not going to do that yet because I don't want it to end up being purple too. I want it to kind of stand out. But this kind of metallic-y gold color, well, goldy, coppery color, whatever. It actually looks really good after you wash it in the purple, so kind of why I'm going to go ahead and do it. Now, besides all this right up in here, I'm also going to do this necklace piece right here. The earring. And you have to be very careful about that. And the top knot here has a ponytail holder. I'm gonna do it there too. Here we go. And all the Daemonettes have like cuffs and sleeves and like little decorative-y bits on their arms as well. And I like to do those up in this kind of nice coppery gold color too. Now keep in mind that when you're doing this, you can see those arms from various different angles. So move your model around to be able and to really get in there because these things need to be connected all the way around. Alright, I'm going to cut the feet because this is long enough. Alright, so now that I've got all the gold on there, and you can see I've got it on like the little leg cuff, that side ornament, and pretty much everywhere else. So there's pretty much paint on all parts of the model except for the little bit right there where the chainmail is. Now I'm going to take some Praxeti white dry paint because my kind of claws and whatnot are now dry. And I'm not going to use a whole lot of it. I'm basically just going to use it to give a little shine on the top of the claws and the horns to kind of make them stand out a little bit. And because it is a dry paint, if you get a little bit too much on there, you can kind of wipe it off kind of real quick with your finger before it sets. Alright, I'm just going to finish that up. Alright, now that I've kind of put the Praxeti white on, I'm going to go in with this Runelord brass layer paint and kind of give a couple of highlights here and there on some of this gold. And the reason why I'm using this particular paint with the Screaming Bell is just so dark red, reddish copper, that this is a nice contrast to it. You can really tell the difference when I'm putting it on where it is. Because once I get the purple wash on there, let me open that back up. It's going to blend a little bit better to it, but it'll still have that nice kind of highlighted edge. So I'm just going to do that. I'm probably going to go a little bit heavier on the claw cuff here, because of the red color of the Screaming Bell and the red color of the claw. It's a little harder to pick that cuff up. So I'm going to put a little bit more Runelord brass on it than anything else. So there, I'm going to go ahead and do that. Alright, home stretch time. So now I'm going to take this Druchii Violet, and it's going to go on all the purple, the hair, and all the gold. And that's how that's going to work. So shake it up real good. And work it in there. Now I'm using the detail brush again to apply this so I don't get it on any of like the flesh or places where I don't want it. Alright. Now that all of that nice Druchii Violet wash has been dried, as you can see, the hair is that nice, almost Genestealer purple. The torso, like all the gold and the purple on the Merry Widow look nice and dark and shadowed in. So all that highlighting we did beforehand really kind of paid off. And now the last thing that we're going to do is take some of this Ironbreaker, and just lightly go over the chainmail. And there you have it. A completed Daemonette, suitable for your army. Thanks for sticking with me, and if you have any comments or questions below, just post them below. I always see them. Not many people actually ask me serious questions, so I don't really respond a whole lot. If you do, I'll do my best. I've got kids, so I don't always get to it very quickly, but I will eventually get to it. If anybody has a model that they would like to see me paint, leave comments below. I'll see what I can do. I only get so many different commissions so far, but I'll give my best try to find what you want. Thank you guys, and good night. Oh, my beloved Randy, even though we're from two different worlds, I can't help but find myself strangely attracted to you.
I feel the same way.
You do? You find me attractive?
No, I find me attractive. Strange, isn't it?